There is this one thing, or actually there are a couple of things, but there is one thing I haven't had a look at on this channel. And this is mailing, sending mails with Laravel. Now, I won't say that this video is the everything you ever need to know about Laravel mailing video, but it definitely is a good first step, and it especially takes into account what changed with Laravel 5.3, something which might be interesting to you even if you already knew how mailing worked. If you didn't know it, well then this video is extra good for you, because here you will get a start-to-end example of how to implement mailing in your Laravel application and send some mails. So let's get started. So let's send some mails, shall we? Let's first start with the difference from 5.2 to 5.3, and then I'll actually walk you through the process of sending a mail in 5.3. So I opened up the documentation for Laravel 5.2, and here in this article we see how we send a mail in 5.2. Side note, this way would still work nowadays. In 5.2 you would use the mail facade here, then the send method, and email's reminder here refers to a view you wanted to use for this email. In Laravel, and that hasn't changed, you use blade templates to lay out your mails, and then it is so at the time you send an email that you tell Laravel which template to use. So you basically send a mail like you render a view when it comes to layouting it. So we would specify that this is the layout we want to use, then we would specify which data we want to pass to that view, just like we specified when rendering a view, so that we have access to the user variable in that view in this example here. And then we have this closure where you would configure your mail and configure to whom you want to send it down here and from whom you want to send it, so which address should be displayed in the email, the subject, and so on. And this would send an email, and this approach would still work nowadays. Now, the problem with that approach is that it's not very pretty. With that closure here and the use keyword to be able to use the user data inside of the closure, that all works and that's all valid PHP code, but it's a bit too complicated, not as pretty as we are used things to be pretty in Laravel. Therefore, it changed a bit in Laravel 5.3, not only making it prettier, but also distributing the logic better, so that you don't have the whole logic in your controller, for example, like we do have it in Laravel 5.2. So let's see how we actually send mail in Laravel 5.3 then. I got a basic view here, which allows me to enter a mail address and then a title, and then, well, basically hit the send me a mail button to send the mail. So that's the view I set up here in my resources views welcome blade PHP file, and, well, just some input fields named mail and title, and then the button. You already saw that in the routes file here, in the web PHP file, I got a post route send mail, which basically redirects me back to the welcome page whenever I'm, well, done here, which has the name send mail. And that, of course, is the route targeted here in my action of this form. So I will execute this route here, this function, this closure here, whenever I hit the send mail button. That's the setup so far. Now, in order to send a mail, we need two things. We need a view, which should lay out our mail. And then we need, well, this mail send thing from Laravel 5.2, or better said, what we now use in 5.3. Well, I'll come back to this. Let's first create a view. Now, it is a good practice to go to your views folder and there create a new directory and name it, for example, email, so that all your email templates are in one single place. You don't have to do it like this, but it is a good practice. Now in here, I'll quickly create a new file and I'll simply name it mymail.blade.php. Of course, this name is totally up to you. Now in this file, I'll set up a HTML5 skeleton here real quick. And of course, you may render any HTML code you want to send as an email. You could also just send some text, whatever you like. My mail here, even though it doesn't really matter. And then here, all I want to do is I want to output you got mail And then let's say here the title which we entered. So simply output the title. Remember, we can enter a title here in this input field in the welcome plate file. So that's all, a really basic mail. And of course, whoops, I should have a $sign here. And of course, you may style this to your needs and output whatever you want to output and so on. So this is my title. This is my email I want to send. And with that set up, it's time to create the new 5.3 approach or follow that approach of sending an email. And Mailables are this new thing I was talking about, introduced with Laravel 5.3. Now, in order to create such a Mailable, I'll head over to my command line in Vagrant here, because I'm using Laravel Homestead, basically navigate into your project folder. And then I'm running PHP artisan make mail my mail like this. So this now created a new Mailable for me, and I can find it in the app folder, and then here in this newly created mail folder. This folder wasn't there before because it would have had no content, but now it has the mymail PHP file. So this is a so-called Mailable here, a file we use to send mail. Now we get two methods here, the constructor and the build method. The build method is where we actually send the mail by returning this, and then we chain up or build up our mail in here. So what I actually do here is, before specifying the view I want to send, I'll specify from whom this mail should be, so which address should be shown. Now you're free to choose whatever you want. I will just choose my app at Laravel 5.3 dev. And it doesn't really matter what you show here. Of course, people might reply to this address, be aware of that, but you can specify whatever you want to specify here. So this is the from address, and then here the view I want to render. Now that, of course, will be in my views folder, the email folder, and then my mail. This is this view I just created. Now remember, in my view, I also want to output some data, the title here. Now I could, or you might think that we would still pass this here in an array, like we do for rendering a view, so that we would have title and then somehow, well, the title. But where do we get the title from? Well, we could use this approach, but the question remains, how do we get the title we want to send? Mailables make it easy to get some data. We will use the constructor here, and we would expect to get the title here. So title, for example. Now, with that, we tell this Mailable that it will receive this title whenever we send a mail. Now, the constructor is the wrong place for this. So what I will actually do is I will create a new public property here, which I'll also name title. And then I want to set this title equal to the title I get passed here in my constructor. Now, what this allows me to do is it enables me to use the title throughout my file here. And now I could pass it here as an array. So title, set it equal to this title. But I don't have to do this. Conveniently, Laravel Mailables make all public properties they have, like this title field here, available in the view of this mail. So I don't have to pass it explicitly with the array. It will already be available. Very convenient. So with that, my Mailable is set up. The next step is to go to the web PHP file, to my route, where I actually want to send the mail. And here I got two options. I can either use the mail facade like that, or of course, as always when using facades, I can also inject the appropriate class, which would be the mailer in this case. So here I could simply inject the mailer from the Illuminate mail package here, so the Laravel package, give it a name of mailer, for example, and then I could use mailer to specify to whom I want to send this mail. Now I'm already injecting the request here, and remember, this request holds the title and the mail address of the recipient. So therefore, I may simply say request input mail, which will be the person to whom I want to send the email address. And then I can chain send to actually send it. Now here, I will need to send it to my Mailable. So to this mymail.php file or to this class defined in this file. I do this by simply passing new mymail. And since I'm in a closure here in the routes file, I need to basically also add the path to this. So /app / mail mymail. And don't forget, I need to pass an argument to the constructor here. The argument is my title. Whoops, title, like that. So let me just restructure this so that it's easier to read. So basically I have my mailer, I set up to whom I want to send the email, and then I send it with the send method here where I pass my mailable, and I need to specify the full path here because I'm in the routes file, which is no class, where I could define this as an import, as a namespace basically. And then the data has to be passed to my mailable. With that, an email will be sent, and thereafter I will be redirected. Now, you might be tempted to now hit this button and send yourself an email. Now, you'll encounter one issue. Your local development environment might not have an email server, and you need such an email server to be able to send mail. Specifically, you got multiple options of which driver you want to use in order to send a mail. Let's go back to the Laravel docs, but this time to the 5.3 docs to see what we have available. At the very beginning, you'll learn the drivers or some of the drivers you have. Specifically, we may use SMTP, Mailgun, SparkPost, which are basically APIs you can use for sending mails, very convenient. Amazon, simple email service, PHP's mail function, and sendmail. And PHP's mail function and sendmail will need your local development environment to have a mail server to work correctly. The environment where you're deploying to probably has this, but your local environment might not have this. Now, a good way to test emailing without having a local mail server and so on is to use a service like Mailtrap. So you can head over to Mailtrap, and Mailtrap is a real cool server, Mailtrap.io it is, which allows you to test mailing basically. It's not sending emails, it's not an API you can use to use an external mail server to send emails. Instead, yes, it does have a mail server, but it basically, that's where the name comes from, it traps all emails, it catches them. So no email gets actually sent, so you can enter whichever address you want to enter, the email will not arrive there, but instead it will arrive in your inbox at Mailtrap, which makes testing very convenient and easy, so I definitely recommend this service for testing. You may simply sign up there, it's free. And once you have signed up, we'll meet each other in the dashboard where I will show you how to actually then use the credentials of this service in your Laravel application to use this service. So I am now logged in, and there you got a demo inbox. And here you will see your credentials. Now the credentials are blurred out here because, well, it's my account, right? But basically here you have a host, port, username, password, and so on. Well, turns out these are the credentials on the SMTP side here you will need in your Laravel application. So if we head over to the Laravel app, you can set up your mail server here in the .env file, which is your config file. Down here, you see the mail driver, which is SMTP, the mail host, which is Mailtrap.io by default, so no need to change anything here. The mail port is also fine. And then you will need to basically grab your username and password here on the Mailtrap inbox and paste it into these fields here. Now I'm going to do this behind the scenes because I would blur it out anyways, but make sure to enter your data there. Now before hitting the button, make sure you have the CSRF field down here. I didn't before. So now it is there. Now let me hit send me a mail. I got redirected back, didn't get an error. Let's have a look at our inbox. We got a new mail here, my mail, you got mail, and hello is displayed here, which is the title I entered. And this is how you can send emails in Laravel with Mailables, the new feature introduced with 5.3, making it easy to configure emails, to configure which view you want to use, to configure how to pass data there, and to finally send the email. Now, if you don't want to use Mailtrap and want to dive deeper into all of that, Check out the official Mail documentation, where you will learn how to set up other drivers, how to, well, send attachments, for example, with emails, and so on. So a really good resource to dive deeper into this topic. See you in the other videos. Bye.